another test for you.
Hello class, unfortunately I can't be there today, so I've very helpfully recorded my PowerPoint. I'd like you to make notes on this, please. Okay,
Really?
Today we're looking at workplace stresses. So first of all we need to look at what a definition of that is. So a definition of workplace stress would be that workplace stresses are aspects of the workplace environment which elicit a stress response, therefore we experience it as stressful. There are different sorts of stress then in the workplace and sources of that stress. One of them might be the physical environment in which you work. So it may be very noisy, there might be too little or too much heat, which makes work more difficult, and more energy therefore has to be expended to overcome those problems. There could be a lack of control, so you don't have a choice over the work that you do, how you do that work. There could be a problem in the workload, so you could have too much work, or the type of work could be very physically or mentally demanding. And then one thing that is very significant for myself and other teachers is home-work balance, home-work interface. So it's balancing the demands of both home and the work can be very stressful, especially if you have young children. Okay, research into this then. So the first study that we're going to look at is by Karasek, 1979. So he produced a model that has been a popular way of picturing the relationship between workload and lack of control. He suggested that most stressful jobs are those which involve a high demand and a low control. The least stressful involve low demand and high control. This graph here shows you how he categorised those things. His research supports the idea that a combination of high demand and low control is the most stressful combination. And it would also show how things can be modified to help people to not experience stress. So things like providing them with support, things like giving them more control. Next study that we're going to look at is by Marmot et al. 1997, and it's known as the Whitehall study. So the aim of this then was to investigate the relationship between control in the workplace and the incidence of coronary heart disease. What Marmot et al. Did was they looked at 7,372 both male and female British civil servants, aged between 35 and 55. It was a longitudinal study as it took place over 5 years. The participants were sent a questionnaire and asked to take part in a screening examination for cardiovascular disease at the beginning of the study. So they established a baseline in terms of their health and heart health. Their employment grades were grouped into 3 categories: administrators, executives, and clerical/support staff. Job control was measured by self-completed questionnaires. At the end of the study, coronary heart disease was measured by a qualified doctor. The findings of that study then were, after taking into account people's age, both men and women in the lowest grades, the clerical support staff were 3 times more likely to develop coronary heart disease. Some methodological issues then with the study are it was largely based on self-report questionnaires, which raises the issue of bias. Some factors were not measured, and these factors could have then had a significant contribution towards the results. Mixture of male and female, so there was no gender bias, but it was all civil servants, so it would be very hard to generalise to other work groups. Ethical issues then The study posed little threat to their psychological harm, although, as with everything, informed consent and debriefing must have taken place afterwards. Workers then developing coronary heart disease should be provided with the necessary support. A further study by Johnson et al. 1978 was a different study to workplace stress. They found high levels of stress hormones and stress-related illness in a group of highly skilled sawmill employees. The reason they looked at these employees was because their jobs were machine run, meaning that they had little or no control over their workplace. Findings. Findings of Marmot et al. 1997 are supported by many other studies, one of them being Fox et al. 1993. In this study, a combination was found of low control and high demand were related to higher blood pressure in nurses. Higher blood pressure was a major risk for heart disease. Also, a review of all studies carried out by van der Dolf and May 1998 concluded that there was substantial evidence from a range of studies supporting the hypothesis that a combination of high demand and low control increases the risk of heart disease. Measuring workplace stress. One of the things that has been put forward to measure workplace stress was by Cooper et al. 1998, which is the Occupational Stress Indicator. This uses self-report questionnaires to measure sources of stress perceived by the employee. It also measures characteristics such as social support, the type of behaviour that people have, and coping strategies. In the end, through this indicator, you will end up with a profile of both the individual and the organisation for which they work. Evaluation of workplace stress. Many studies use self-report methods, i.e. questionnaires and interviews, to gather data, and therefore answers might be influenced by social desirability, what people believe we want to hear. The link between workplace stress and illness is purely correlational. Correlation does not show a cause and effect relationship between the variables, as other factors could be involved. Individual differences are not taken into account. Some occupations might attract certain types of personality, and this in turn affects vulnerability and stress. There are sample issues with some studies into workplace stress, explaining why some studies would find a link in what they're looking at, i.e. the Fox study looking at nurses. However, there are a significant practical applications for society. Lots of people then would take time off work when stressed, or it would lead to illness, again leading to absenteeism or a higher turnover of staff, leading to businesses being less productive, leading to them producing less money. If people then can devise individually tailored stress management programs for their employees and also change the way that the organisation is structured to produce less stress, then this will have a positive consequence for both the employees and the organisation.